Welcome to the NS9 Postgame show powered by Primanti Brothers. I am Ryan Alexander. With me is Doug. I shouldn't be shocked, Doug. As I just listened to Greg Brown close the broadcast down with one of the worst losses in Pirates history. That's what we get to deal with today, Doug. How are you?
Oh, I'm just swell. Just, I should be used to this kind of junk. Really, I mean, I know this is extreme, but I mean, look, it's a terrible franchise, and it's terrible from top to bottom. We don't spend money, and that's sure, but that's not our biggest problem. I would just love to tell you we could solve it with payroll, but you can't, because we would just waste that money. We would get the wrong guys, and we would insist on using David Bednar as a closer when he hasn't been effective for a month now. It's a full month. It's just a bad team that makes bad decisions and compounds it with just poor optics. There's nothing you could say. It's time to fire people. And I don't even want to wait till the end of the season. You fired the Latin American scouting director. Yep. It's time to come up north. It's time to bring in the broom. It's time to sweep a bunch of people out. And we can talk about this game. We can break it down, but it's just endemic of what's been going on for really decades now. So, and there doesn't seem to be a foreseeable end in sight.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the scouting, the Latin American director gets fired. That was what I tweeted out. I was like, just continue purging, just purge the whole organization at this point. Yeah. Pirates lose today 14-10. Don't want to bury the lead here. They were up 10-3. Cubs scored 11 unanswered runs, came back and won 14-10. Pirates are now 62-71, Doug.
You're not supposed to give up 11 runs in a week.
No, I think they said it was the biggest blown lead since 1974. You now got swept to the Cubs in just an awful, horrendous series where I think it was the most runs scored in a 3-game series since 1903 or something. I saw that with the Pirates. So just tons of records being broken, but not on the good end at all. And before we get into it, Doug, here, Jim Rosati, he had some money down in this game today.
That team in 1974, that 1974 team that gave up those runs, you know what? The worst possible record they could have had was 500, because the Pirates in the 70s finished above 500 every year except one, and that year they went 500. Right. So you shrug that one off, but this. We might see this again on Friday, right? I mean, that we might see this again 3 more times this year. This is not special. It's not unique. It's not unusual. This is a terrible team that finds new and creative ways. It's the only thing they're good at doing is find creative ways to lose games. And I guess this really wasn't creative. You went with a closer who has not been effective for a month. You could have just left Santana out there. He's been your most effective reliever this month. We talked about it before the show. You let Chapman go 2 innings. I think 5 times this year I'd have said, hey, man, maybe, Chapman only had 8 pitches in that 7th inning. Why not bring him out for the 8th? And no. We had to stick to this rigid, he only pitches this inning. He only pitches 1 inning, that sort of thing. Suddenly we let him go 2 and he can't get anybody out. And he was due a bad outing. He's been lights out. But it makes no sense bringing Bednar into a game with holding a lead. We love him. He's been great, but he's not been right all year, right? He started out, a little hurt, and we forced him into some stuff. He's never really gotten right. He had a nice stretch, but even during that stretch, there was a lot of leadoff singles, a lot of leadoff doubles, and he'd get out of it, and that's fine. But he's not been right. Just shut him down, just for his own psyche, right? It doesn't look like he's going to get on hot streak so he can come in the next offseason, feeling confident. Just shut him down. Tell him not even to come to the ballpark. Go home, drink some icy lights, have a good time. It's just, and I would suggest like throwing Majinski or Nicholas. But Nicholas should not pitch against the Cubs. That would be my rule there. He's been good against everybody else, but awful against the Cubs. But I mean, you just can't keep repeating these mistakes. It was funny. I was thinking, when we were up 10-3 and having such a go ahead.
No, it's a sad state of affairs when a 10-3 lead. You have a 10-3 lead, and the first thing I thought of was like this. It's not a shoe-in win. Like it's you just don't, like, if you're thinking that the game's over at that point, it's just you haven't been watching Pirates baseball lately. Or over the last 20, 30 years, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
But hang on, Doug. I'm going to let you continue to cook here.
For your entire life, if you've been watching.
As I was mentioning, so Rosati had some money down in this game. He did not have the Cubs, though. But if you did have money down, let me tell you about Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. I'm ready for football season, too. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our 200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. For the people that have the Pirates win total over bet, I don't think they're cashing that. And that looked like a pretty much a shoe-in mid-season. And here's where we're at. And some, people have been saying it here, this series was worse than the 10-game losing streak. I just don't understand how this 10-game losing streak that they had, followed by this kind of series that they just had, and just the same stuff over and over again, nothing changing. How are these people keeping their jobs? How is Shelton still here? And then you got to look at Cherington. Like, how is Ben Cherington still here? Bednar, I had it all planned, Doug, to come on here today to talk about how it was nice to see the Pirates come out today, salvage a game in this series that was an ugly series. Nothing went right for them. The Cubs were just beating them all around the ballpark for 2 games. And here they came out 10-3, lead, Skenes on the mound. Nope. You can't even get a win off of that. And I was going to come on here and talk about Kyle Hendricks and say, how did the Cubs allow Kyle Hendricks to start 19 games this season with a, ERA well over 6? But here we are on August 28th, Doug, and Bednar, who has a 6-something ERA, is still your closer. You're still running him out there for a closer. And it's like we're doing the same crap that they're doing with Hendricks. And it's just I'm at a loss for words. I'm numb to this team. This was crazy today.
I had similar thoughts. I was thinking that, that North Shore 9, that we've passed up an opportunity that we should sort of franchise out this podcast. And the Cubs they play on the north side. They could be North Side 9. And I was thinking how their podcast was going to go today when we were up 10-3. They're like, this is not a serious organization. You're pitching Kyle Hendricks. You get 3 runs early off Skenes, and then you're getting beat by guys I've never heard of. McKinney and Alika Williams and Jared Criollo. This is not a serious organization. How can pop flies dropping, off of Rowdy Telez's bat. This team's not fundamentally sound. Bad double plays. I was thinking, the Cubs, a Cubs podcast would sound very, very similar to a Pirates podcast. But now, they're popping champagne.
They're celebrating the sweep. They're celebrating the sweep right now, Doug.
It's talking about cheese. thought we were bad, and then I watched the Pirates. There were like 3 guys in the lineup that should be in the minors, right? Triolo, Alika Williams, and McKinney. One guy that should be retired in Grandal, and then 5 or 6. Then you got Connor Joe and Rowdy Tellez that should maybe be the 26th man on a roster. That was our lineup, and yet somehow
That was
amongst
4
all
through
the
9.
Fire
4
Hanes
through 9 today was brutal.
They scored,
and they scored 10 runs.
Oh no,
They
early
scored 10
one.
runs.
Yeah, Billy McKinney batting 6th. Yeah, I mean they credit to Bob Walk in the first inning on the radio. He's like, look, the bottom of this lineup might be able to get to Hendricks. He wasn't wrong, but 10 runs. You score 10 runs, and Paul Skenes started the game, and Paul Skenes left with a 10-3 lead. Thinking, hey, I should have a win. This is going to help my rookie of the year, and no, not so fast, my friends. As a college football reference there.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you say? What do you say? I mean, it's just, like I said earlier in the season, and I don't want to say I defended Shelton. I certainly wasn't, as supportive of him as Neil, but you'd look at the roster and say, okay, his options aren't great. Even with his bad options, he's making bad decisions. He sticks with them too long. He sticks.
Right.
And I get back to it. Ralph Waldo Emerson, a foolish consistency. Bednar's my closer. Why? Why? Yeah. You want to win some games. He's not. Yeah. He doesn't have it, right? He doesn't have it. Do something else. And why not try somebody like Majinski? Why not try Kyle Nicholas? These games mean nothing. We're not going anywhere. And at least then you could say, hey, you're seeing how this guy reacts in that situation, as opposing to knowing that Bednar just doesn't have it. And you've shot Bednar's trade value. So, you're pretty much stuck with him next year, but he doesn't have to be a closer. He can just be in the bullpen.
I think it was Tyler and I talked about this a week ago or so, and he was on the wait and see. And at this point, I said the same thing last week. Like, unless Bednar went on some like great run for the last month and a half of the season, he can't be your closer at this point next year. I don't even think he can be your closer.
You can't count on him. Maybe yeah. Right.
But at this point, it doesn't matter, Doug, because
you can't count on him to be that. Maybe he can earn it back.
Yeah, there's no accountability.
There's nothing to gain, right? Or lose. Yeah.
How about both teams said
there's no reason you couldn't pitch him into 6th.
Both teams had 16 hits each today. This was a 3.5-hour ball game, Doug. We were talking in the group chat, like, we should be done with the post game at this point. And here we are doing this. This is just, it takes the cake. Like, the whole season, everything we've dealt with this team, buying at the deadline and then just completely falling apart. 10-game losing streak, bullpen not doing it, team can't hit, and then as soon as they hit, starting pitching falls apart. You have Paul Skenes on the mound. Yeah, he wasn't perfect today. He only went 5, but you had a 10-3 lead. Like, you need to close those games out.
And he could have gone more. I mean, you were just protecting him because, hey, we're up 10-3. This is the perfect time. That's the way I save an inning for him so he can pitch a little longer in the season. Right. That's how I looked at that. Had you known, had it been 3-2 or something along those lines, or 4-3, he may have went another inning. But you're supposed to, with a 10-3 lead and 4 innings to go, and you're supposed to, with Rowdy Tellez as a pitcher, you're supposed to be able to navigate that win. That is a bare minimum expectation for a manager. That you should be able to protect an 8-run lead with 4 innings to go.
Yeah.
No matter how bad your hand is.
Absolutely. And I saw a couple people in the chat and on Twitter saying, Henry Davis came in to catch. He came in for Grandal, and all of a sudden the Pirates couldn't get outs and were giving up runs. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much you put stock in that, Doug. They, it was, a lot of it was they couldn't throw strikes. They were walking guys. Couldn't throw strikes, gave up, the lead, the game. And then, then Beeks came in and he was throwing strikes and just kept getting hit everywhere. So I don't know if do you put any stock into that? Davis coming in for Grandal. I mean, Davis, this is only his second game back. But I don't really know if I put the game on that, but God, it was just nobody in that bullpen could get those strikes and get outs.
Right. Yeah, that seems a little. I mean, you have to have some personal accountability. I don't care what Henry Davis is calling. I don't care what he's asked for. You know, you're the one that's throwing the bad pitches. Eventually, you're the one that. And so, say you need to have sort of agency over your own career. Sometimes I talk about this a lot of times with the hitters and Haynes. It's like, look, if you don't like what the catcher's doing, you're the one ultimately throwing the pitch. Tell him this, get back there, crouch, and this is what's coming. I don't care. And don't keep walking people. I just can't. I can't put that one on Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just, but right. I mean, it was some of our, solid guys that fell apart. It was, I mean, but Chapman has these once in a while. He's been really good. Nicholas has been really good. Again, we sort of became victim of the big lead, that Shelton wanted to just sit back there and say, we're up 8. I can, we can see if he can get out of it. And so we can save a pitcher for a game on Friday or something,
Right. And you mentioned it earlier, and we brought it.
It goes right to our lack of sense of urgency. Right.
Yeah. With Chapman, he brings Chapman out for a second inning today. He's gone, and it was Chapman's first run allowed since August 2nd. So he's had a really good month, really good second half, really. But this was only his second multi-inning performance this year. So we've had so many games throughout this year that you could have gone to Chapman a second inning, and Shelton never really did. And then today he uses it to go him for a second inning. And of course, Chapman gets wild and he starts giving up hits, and then they pull him for Denny Santana, who was, got a couple outs and got out of it. And then, Bednar 2-run lead in the 9th. What could go wrong? And we saw it. Yeah. It's just, just nothing can go right for this team. And that's what I mean. Like, if you have a 7-run lead and you're not even comfortable with it, like that's the way I'm feeling. I think that's the way most fans feel. And what's the team feeling like? What's Skenes feeling like at this point, seeing these guys go out? And let's talk about the 9th inning, Doug, with Kiner Falefa at short. The Pirates make that decision to just all of a sudden, let's move Cruz to center field. He's not a shortstop anymore. We'll put Kiner Falefa at his worst position. And he has a ground ball to him at 9th where he doesn't knock down, gets behind him. I think that tied the game up. Or no, I think it was the game in the lead at that point. It's just you're moving guys around in August, at the end of August, that are in worse positions. They don't have a plan. They're still throwing Bednar out in the 9th with the lead. I just don't the performance is indicative of how they're running things in my eyes. I mean, it's just whatever.
It's a Ben Cherington staple of putting guys in positions that they're not comfortable with, right? He has the only position he seems to have any interest in having decent defense is catcher. And he's kind of given up on that this year. But prior to that, right, I mean, he's putting Josh Van Meter at first. He couldn't even tag first base. He didn't know where, what I'm saying? He's not a first baseman. You're putting Bay at second base. He can't turn a double play. He can't make the throw to first. You're putting Henry Davis in right field, prep time in the minors at the position. And you had perfect opportunity to do that. Right. He seems to be a guy who thinks the bat will play, but he's doing that with a bunch of guys who can't hit. So now you're taking a guy can't hit and put him in a position that he's not as good at. It is just, it's dumbfounding. Like how you're putting in a guy in a position who can't hit, in a position that he can't field, and then wondering why he's not producing effectively, right? So now he's struggling with the bat, he's struggling in the field. This is no way to get somebody. Yeah. When was the last time he played left field? And I know it's really easy to say, how hard can it be? What did very hard is what the guy said in Moneyball about learning first base. It's incredibly hard.
Funny you brought up Moneyball, because
I don't understand.
I wanted to say the same thing, Doug. Like, Baseball, it's not. I mean, it's an easy game, Doug. You throw the ball, or that's Bull Durham. You throw the ball, you catch the
Bull
ball.
Durham, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it rains, sometimes
You hit the
sometimes you
ball.
win. And it's just the Pirates, they're just a bad team. And they, like, as Brian Oliver just said it here in the chat, bad teams find ways to lose. And that's exactly what they're doing. Like, they make this game harder than it should be. And even with a 10-3 lead, you can't even get on the offense at this point. Reynolds had a great game. Cruz, continued his hot streak. Rowdy Tellez, 3 hits. Connor Joe had 3 hits. Triolo had a couple hits. And they had 16 hits in this game. Yeah, like they were hitting.
Yeah. They scored 10 runs.
Yeah, with Skenes on the mound.
You should never lose. Yeah,
and you're right. Like,
who
Skenes,
Skenes.
Let's talk about Skenes too, because like I said, he wasn't he wasn't perfect or wasn't on his normal game. Say it was 90 some degrees today. It was a very hot day at the ballpark. But I think if the game is 4-3, 5-3, Doug, Skenes is probably staying in to pitch another inning or so. And like you said, they kind of became a victim of the big lead. They pulled him out. Hey, we're trying to conserve his innings, keep him, later in this year. And now you got to turn to this bullpen. And, it wasn't like they went to Ben Heller. Like, they did go to their guys like Nicholas, Chapman. It's just, they weren't good enough. And then you bring Bednar in because they just continue. Hey, Bednar's our guy. Pound the table. He's our closer, which is stupid. Like, at this point, just let Nicholas close the game out, or let Santana or somebody else. But no, they just keep rolling with Bednar, and there goes the game. And then Beeks comes in, and it's just.
You were willing to go. You were willing to go 2 innings with Nicholas. You were willing to go 2 innings with Chapman. But Santana, again, your most effective reliever this month, gets 2 outs, and you can't bring him back because you have to go to your dominant.
You got to go to your closer.
Right. So, again, had you to me, a team and a manager with a sense of urgency about winning, who realizes how important every win is, would have stuck with Santana there. You kind of go with the hot hand. You can't keep going back to Bednar. Like you said, that whoever took the over this year, sorry.
I knew
I took Brian Hayes leading the league in doubles, so I feel your pain.
Right. I knew it coming out of spring training. We were, Henry Davis was homering all spring. Cruz was looking great. Like everybody was sort of, it was just, everybody was hyping this team up. And the guys, DiNardo, the big 3, DiNardo, Jim, Tyler, they were pretty high on this team. And a lot of people were.
Big 3.
And I was just kind of sitting back like, I was uneasy, Doug. Like, everybody's taking the over wins and the win game and the win challenge. And it was just, this team's all of a sudden going to win 83, 84, 85 games. And, they're going to compete for the division and this and that. And they were decent. They were good for a while.
And that was back when we didn't think the starting pitching was going to be good.
Right. We thought the bats and the bullpen were the
thought
strength.
that, not realizing what Jared Jones would do, what Paul Skenes and what Bailey Falter and Luis Ortiz. So they were thinking 83 wins, and then they get these, and that's when they thought starting pitching was our weakness, right?
Yep.
So if you thought this team was going to get 83 wins, and then those guys come in and pitch like that, God, this should be a 100-win team.
Right. You'd be predicting 90 some.
Yeah.
But instead, here we are. Like I said, I was uneasy, and of course
we considered that starting lineup is we thought it had some depth.
Right.
After Reynolds and Cruz, there's no depth.
And it turns out all year they couldn't hit. The pitching was great, and now today's game they score 10 runs and the bullpen falls apart. It's just they can't do. Just a bad team. They can't do 2 good things on the same game. They lost this series, 18-8, 9-5, and 14-10. Like, what? Those are football scores.
And Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, and Paul Skenes pitched. Now, and remember, and I'd said this at the beginning of the week, I hate when we as Pirates fans start counting victories. Jim said, if the Pirates can sweep the Cubs. You know, just like if the Pirates can sweep the Oakland A's, and if the Pirates, we're always, you know, assuming that, oh yeah, hey, I like the way this lines up. We're gonna get 2 out of 3. We might even sweep. Well, we got swept. You know,
Jim also told us in the group chat today that this game won't get ugly because Skenes was pitching. And he was correct. I mean, Skenes didn't give up 8 or whatever, but the game still got ugly. It was, as Greg Brown said, real ugly, one of the worst losses in Pirates history. That's where we're at today. That's what we got to deal with, Doug. Like this, just brutal. Like I'm out of words. I mean, at this point, Doug, Shelton has to go. Right? Like now. Like do something.
There's no way. There's no way he can survive this. Right. Because again, it started out, you know, he was going to save Bednar, and Bednar was blowing the save. And well, Bednar had saved 19 in a row, so it made sense. But then he blew the next game. You know, and he lost 3 games during that stretch. And Holderman lost 3 games during that 10-game stretch. At some point, you have to step back and say, all right, he's not performing, right? You know, so let's not bring him in a 1-run game or a 2-run game. You know, we've got other guys performing well. Let's use them. Let's use the hot hand. So I mean, Shelton has had an awful, awful month. And on top of that, the team has no fundamentals. And that has to be a reflection on the manager and coaching staff. Thrown out on the bases, throw to the wrong bases, don't back up. I mean, just mistake after mistake after mistake. There is no way that Shelton can survive this, but there should be no way that Ben Cherington survives this. And I've heard guys, you know, some of the other podcasts and guys on Twitter saying, oh, a new GM would want to come in and start a rebuild. I wholeheartedly disagree. You don't need to start a rebuild. You don't need to trade Brian Reynolds. You got Reynolds, you've got Cruz, you've got Joey Bart, you got that Keller, Jones, Skenes, and some of these other guys that, you know, Luis Ortiz and maybe Bubba Chen, you know, on and on and on. You just need to get average players around them. Maybe, you know, one hitter that's above average on top of that, and then get just average, actually average, not guys that slump, you know, and hit, you know, 175 for 3 months and then have a hot streak to sort of get it, you know, do the old Jack Sawinski. Just get guys that are consistent day in, day out type players. And you can be a better team. I'm not, you know, and maybe you can ride good starting pitching.
And I agree with you.
This up. You don't have to start all over.
I agree 100%.
But you do need to make some changes.
Yeah, you definitely need to make changes. And that's the thing. I think one thing that would save Ben's job maybe a year or two is getting rid of Shelton, is using that as a scapegoat and saying, hey, he wasn't the guy. He was just a placeholder. Like he lost the team, whatever. I'm going to go get a guy with experience or whatever. And, you know, I think that could save his job for a year or two. Not that it should. I wanted Ben go, you know where I stand. I wanted him gone last year, all of them. And I say purge everybody, but I'm with you. I don't think a new GM would necessarily come in here and be like, oh, I got to blow it up and rebuild. Shit, we are still in a rebuild, Doug. So it's like you are. And you have,
that's what I'm saying. This isn't a team. A bunch of old veterans, right?
Like you have talent there.
The best players on
you
this
could
team
build around them.
You know, aren't guys that are about to make $400 million, and you got to get rid of them because you can't afford them. Your best assets are pitchers going into their second year. You've got cheap, you've got cheap starting pitching that's really good. Build on that. You've got Brian Reynolds and Cruz. I mean, and what you see, I mean, Cruz looks like he's turning into that player that we, you know, have hoped he can be. So yeah, you again, make a few aggressive moves, trade some of your assets, you know, some of your prospect capital, and get a legitimate, you know, right fielder or first baseman, you know, that sort of thing. But consider, you know, if you're just going to keep spending $3 million for first base, you know, you're going to get the same results. You're going to get the same. I don't care how good your starting pitching is. If, you know, I don't care how good you make the bullpen, what have you, you've got to be able to score some runs in today's baseball.
Consider this, Doug. The Pirates went into this series against the Cubs at home with Jones, Keller, and Skenes as your pitchers, your starting pitchers. And they gave up 41 runs to the Cubs in 3 games. I mean, it's brutal. That's brutal.
Yeah.
And just to go out in the fashion that they did today,
They scored 23, right? The Pirates, did they score?
Yeah, they had 10.
I think they scored 18, 5. Yeah. They scored 23 runs.
They got
and
outscored
didn't win a
41 to
game.
23. Yeah, 41 to 23. You got
Right.
outscored.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Almost 8 runs a game, right? They scored almost 8 runs a game and didn't get a single win. And it actually sort of got blown out each game as it turned out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I don't know much about Bob Nutting and his personnel, this sort of stuff, and we can talk about him being, C. Montgomery Burns and all that sort of stuff. But I don't see how you allow this to continue. That significant changes have to be made because we don't get anything right. It's not like we're killing it in the draft. It's not like we're killing it in development. Latin American development. We're not succeeding in any specific area. With the first overall pick, he took Skenes, and I give him credit for that because I think the big three all wanted Dylan Cruz. I could be wrong on that, but I mean, a lot of people wanted Dylan Cruz from the start of the college season. That's what everybody wanted, and then Skenes came on so strong. But he got that one right. Much like Neil Huntington got Garrett Cole right. Those aren't always But what do you do with some of these other picks? And again. Give him credit, Jared Jones and stuff. But I mean, Nick Gonzalez does not look like the answer. Henry Davis does not look like the answer. Those
still
all those
about Davis.
Solometo, Braylon Bishop, Lonnie White, the Taiwanese guys he signed, and nothing is working very effectively, other than the fact that Paul Skenes is a beast, and he is a once in a lifetime, more than that probably, and. So you got lucky. You did the right thing and nothing else.
And I was thinking about this last night with Skenes. Skenes, I think we all know, is here for a limited time. Maybe 4 to 5 years if we're lucky. Like every start that he goes out there is one less start in his Pirates career. And you're only going to get so many. So, you say 4 to 5 years, let's say average 20, 25 starts a year. Like, you're somewhere around 100 starts. If there's an injury, have
120 starts.
Yeah. If there's an injury, probably a lot less than that. But it's just, I can't stop thinking about every start he comes out and they play a game like this, or they waste it because they don't score runs, or the bullpen blows it. It's just another wasted start that you're down a Skenes start out of his total that he's going to have.
We're going to turn Paul Skenes into JJ Watt, right? Or TJ.
And you got right? Livy Dunn's already tweeting out memes of Skenes after games like this, and it's just not good signs. Not good signs.
No.
I'm out of words, Doug. I don't know about you, but just a brutal one today. And it was hot. Like there wasn't many people at the ballpark today. It looked like there was like a handful, like a couple hundred people. But good Lord, like it was hot today.
It looks like they turned people away.
I couldn't imagine being at the stadium to watch that crap. So I don't know. They off day tomorrow, Doug, so they can think about it all day tomorrow, and then we go to Cleveland.
Yeah,
a mistake by the lake. So,
right.
But
and Cleveland's going to be in a bad mood because they've been getting roughed up by Kansas City. So,
we're the perfect team for them to come rolling in for them. That's for sure. We can just turn them right back.
Yeah, how to get well. Right, how to get well.
Because Cleveland, a team who's also has a similar payroll and cheap owner, seems to get into the playoffs a lot more frequently than the Pirates do.
It seems it always seems to be a decent team, right? And I haven't seen them on a lot of the blooper reels, but maybe they're making all the same fundamental mistakes too. But
right.
There's. I mean, we have talked for 35 minutes now. On
way too long.
That there was really nothing to talk about. Right? They did not deserve a 30-minute post-game show.
No. Sorry again, guys. I had the giveaway all ready to go. The sandwiches didn't happen, so apologize for that. Maybe Friday. But thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to the podcast and watching the streams and the shows. Can't appreciate it enough. I don't know where we'd be without this whole group here, because these games just drive you nuts. In a game like today where they blow a 10-3 lead, biggest blown loss since 1974, just absolutely terrible. So I'm done, Doug. Any parting words?
Yep, that's it. No, just like you said, thanks to the chat. Thanks to all our loyal and faithful NS9 fans. I'm not sure that I would have tuned into this show. So, thank you, because I would have been so disgusted. I'd have been so disgusted. So
it's been hard to tune into the Pirates
coming
at all this week or last month.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I would have checked out on that game somewhere in the 8th inning. I think once I heard, "Oh, mama,"
Right.
I think I'd have said, "No, I'm going to bury my head in the sand." So thanks, guys. We'll be back Friday. Let's go Bucks.
Thanks again, guys. See ya.
Hey, you all. Thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.